Today I'm going to show you how to warp a circular loom. Here's the weaving that I worked on during the Institute. It's actually the second one I worked on. My 12-year-old made. Here's a smaller one that I'm currently working. This one is an unfinished one by my 9-year-old. So just to give an idea of age ranges. First one, it's a little bit smaller. I'm going to zoom out. Here's a bigger one that I worked on in last winter. And here's like my big quarantine one. So what I'm going to be demonstrating is warping it on an embroidery hoop. I have been using these because they're super easy to find. In my area, I go to a Goodwill outlet where you pay by the pound, and there's just like always these embroidery hoops. So I think people are just kind of like getting rid of grandma's basement kind of thing. But you can do it on other circular things as well. I've had students do it on CDs and paper plates. So with the paper plates, I've taken a stack and I've taken a ruler and an X-Acto knife and cut the notches along the side, so it's a little different process. But the big thing that you need to remember, no matter what circle you're using, is that it has to be an odd number. So your your warp has to be an odd number. Okay, so to start on the embroidery hoop, I just need my thread. Whatever you have will work, but you'll find that some work better. I'm actually not quite an expert yet, but because I thrift, I just find them. Probably some kind of a polyester blend works the best. Scissors and tape will help hold things into place. And I try to keep my warp thread. I always take a lot more than I need because it's annoying to run out. And I try to keep it in a nice little loop so it doesn't get knotted while I'm working on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a tail here and I'm going to tape it onto the embroidery hoop. Okay, so that's my starting point. I also use that tape later when I'm trying to count. So I'm starting with my warp on top of the embroidery hoop, but I'm going to do basically a figure 8 going around, like clockwise or counterclockwise. So I'm going from the top to the bottom on the other side, and I'm going to hold it pretty tight. That's why I used duct tape, but whatever you have will be fine. And then I'm going to go around to the top and I turn my wheel around, and now I'm going to go a tiny bit over. So I'm just going to keep following this pattern. I'm not going to go back to the top. I'm going to go to the bottom. So this is where it's kind of making a figure 8. And you can make as many spokes on here as you want to, but it's important, again, to always make sure that you have an odd amount. The more you have, the more detailed the work will be. The more spaced out, there'll be like really big wedges here. And you just have to find a thicker yarn or fabric to kind of fill in those spaces. So now I'm over on this side and I'm on the top, and I'm going to go under to the other side. See, it's starting to cross over. Bring it around to the top, and I bring my wheel around, and now I'm crossing over again, put it under. The tail's kind of getting in the way, and I'm going to speed this up so you can kind of watch. It's on the top, go under. So now I'm at the end. I'm back to where I started, and I have 31 spokes, if you will. And I counted a couple times because I've made that error before. So now I can just tie it onto the original piece. You can either keep the tape on, or you could use somebody's finger, whatever. But tie it nice and taut, and that's going to be your last one. might have to pause to borrow. Okay, so I'm not quite done. I'm going to take this tape off because I don't really need it anymore. If a student is doing this and theirs gets a little loose, you can always put tape around the edges though. So I'm going to cut some of that so it doesn't get in my way. Now the next thing I need to do to just kind of really get the loom set is I'm going to weave in a few pieces of this warp thread to tighten up the center. And you can kind of see mine's a little bit off-centered. It's not really a big deal, but that's just because it wasn't like perfectly done around. But you could try to shimmy it over this way or try to move these around. It's up to you. Or maybe like you or your student wants to have it off-center. So again, while I'm getting that ready, I have done this with my 9-year-old and my 12-year-old. I warped the looms for them. I bet a 12-year-old that is really ready for it could do it, but this would probably be more of a secondary project. With the paper plate project, I did that with elementary, and I think that they could handle that if you didn't have too many spokes on it. All right, so for the sake of being able to see, I switched threads. You could do this with the same color, or you could, just make an artistic choice and have that center piece. I'll give you an example of what that center piece looks like, be a different color. So here I started with the same white, and then I switched to some other embroidery floss. It looks like here was the same turquoise. So it's just like whatever you would like to do, but I'm going to switch to black to make it a little bit easier to see. So it doesn't matter where I start, but I'm going to basically do the over under pattern that you are all familiar with, and I'm going to do it around the outside, and then I'm going to slowly shimmy it towards the center. So I'm going over under, and with the little ones, we do a lot of chants with that. So this can get real confusing in here, so I keep it out here so I can see to double check that I'm doing over, under. And I almost bring it all the way around before I pull it tight because it gets kind of lost in there. And this part maybe is a little bit harder for you to see. So I'm just going to kind of keep it in like an arc or a C going around. Over, under, over, under. And I'm almost back to where I started. Well, maybe I have half of it done, I guess. Over, under. And I'm only doing the top. And I can already see that maybe I have a mistake in here. So I'm gonna have to double check that. Okay, so now I am back to where I started, and this is where I'm going to finally pull it tight. So I have them kind of crossed over here, and I'm going to actually keep weaving around, but just this first time, if I keep it nice and loose, I have more control. I can see better where it is. So I'm going to pull it tight slowly, and if your center is a little bit off, this would be the time where you could kind of yank one side, or you could take the needle and kind of push them in a little bit. And this is going to kind of pull all those spokes together. It really does not look pretty in the beginning, and I have found I don't even need to tie this because it will eventually just work itself out. I actually don't tie any of the weaving as I go. I've learned that from other people, but also just practice. So then now I have a tight center, and I can readjust the spokes if I want to, but then I can keep weaving this part around just to make it even more secure. So I'm almost at the end of just putting the center on. I'm going to cut this tail off now because it's getting in my way, and it's pretty secure. I could cut this off and be done right here. I think I personally would like to see a couple more rows in there. Just, I like the way it looks, but it's secure at this point. So you can just weave your tail underneath, and then you have your loom set up. So let me just show you. I'm still doing under, over, under, over. You can experiment with all kinds of weaving patterns after this. That would be another video, of course. And I just end it by putting the tail on the back side. Okay, and then I will just cut it. And I'm good to go. I only weave on this top layer. You can choose if you want to do anything with this outside edge, but I do keep it on the embroidery hoop. And you are welcome to use this video with your students if you have some older students and they would like to use this. But yeah, then this is the artist palette. They can go to town and research all different types of weaving and collect different yarns or tear up fabrics or found objects to weave into the circle loom. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.